Wow, this was an epic project. It took way longer and required so much more than I originally anticipated, which is why I'm making this video to help you in case you want to build a brand new wildlife pond or you've got one that has to be redone. And in my case, I had to redo it because though this pond has been around for a good few years and is well established, it had a puncture in the liner. And so this is as good a time as any to take the entire thing out and to completely revamp it. But my goals in this have been to not only improve the design, make it fit better with my garden design elements, but also to make it more usable for wildlife and to save the wildlife that's already in it. Let's begin by skipping all the way to the end and having a look at the finished project. This is my revamped wildlife pond. It is about 5 feet long. It's about 3 feet wide, 3.5 maybe, and it is edged in the white quartz stones that I have in the garden. There's also plants that are around the edges, some seeds I've just sown today. There are aquatic plants in there. There's even some shelter for frogs down at the end with that broken pot. And this is our seating area. This is our chill out area at the end of the day. We love sitting here, looking at the pond, watching it. And there are even frogs living in it right now. Absolutely delighted. So a little history on this pond. We built it several years ago, the initial pond, and it's in a smallish area here in front of the Polycrub, so a very small space. So I opted to use a flexible pond liner, one that was an offcut from a project at the allotment. And it was great. We dug out this hole, we put underlay in, we put the pond liner on, and we decorated it with some stones and other things that we found here at the house, basically, when we moved in. And it has been great over the years. The one thing that has always really bothered me about it, though, is that the black plastic liner was visible in some areas, and more recently, the water level had been dropping. I suspect it's because I was using these sharp stones inside the pond. I found one puncture hole and I haven't yet to go over the old liner, but I'm sure we'll find more. Regardless, there's brand new liner in there. The majority of the aquatic life and plants that were in there before are there again. And although it was a big project, it was well worth it. I'm so pleased with this. Now, the idea with this wildlife pond is to create a space that is going to be a hot spot for wildlife, for my bees to come and have a drink, for birds to come down, for frogs to hang out in and have tadpoles. And this new evolution of the pond is going to make it even more of a magnet for wildlife. I don't think that there is a great time to be doing this kind of a project. It's one of those projects that you only do if you have to with an established wildlife pond. And that's because there are so many animals living in it. And so when you're going in there and taking the water out, you're taking everything out, you're disrupting that established system. So my goal with this project was to do it at the best time for the pond and to try to save as many animals as possible that were already living there. Now, as far as timing is concerned, now I think is probably the best time for this because it is far enough into spring that it's warm enough. There's no animals hibernating down in the sludge at the bottom. It's also early enough so that there aren't as many animals reproducing. The plants haven't really grown so much. So it was kind of now or never. And the first step with this was removing all of the elements that were around the pond. So all of the stones and whatnot. And behind a couple of stones, right at the top of the pond, I found 2 resident frogs. So I captured them gently and I put them in a bucket, covered it to keep them safe. and stuck it over here in the shade at the side of the Polycrub. And I only left them there for a day, but I wanted them to stay safe and not get filched while I was working on the pond. And then the next step was taking the water out. Now, to save the life that was already in my wildlife pond, I needed to save the water. So it wasn't as simple as bailing it out and chucking it. I needed to save it. And so I bailed it out and put it in whatever containers that I had. And that's because I know that pond life isn't just the things that I can see, like the tadpoles and the little tiny shrimp and the little tiny snails, but it's also about the microorganisms that I can't see, the ones that are living in the water. So it was important to save that water so I could reintroduce it back. Once I had bailed out as much water as possible, I took the old liner and old underlay out of the pond and I set them aside. And then it was time to get to work on improving the pond cavity itself. So first of all, I was looking for anything that was sharp that could puncture the new liner that I had sourced. And I actually found glass. I found some sharp stones. I don't know how we missed that the first time. It was during excavating new areas and making it a little bit deeper. So potentially it was under the surface. I also used the opportunity to make the pond a little bit wider to create shelving areas on the sides that were just under the water surface. And I also used a level to make sure that everything was level, that the water level would sit at the tops of the areas and look great. Once I had stamped down all of the soil, it was time to start putting the underlay back on. And I put the old underlay on there as an extra bit of cushion and then a new layer on top. And then went the liner. So into the cavity that they went, and I actually worked inside the hole to try to squeeze it into every single little crevice because, my goodness, that pond liner could not have been any smaller. Now came the challenging part, refilling the ponds. Now, I wanted to use the majority of the pond water that I had already taken out because it's just loaded in life, but not all of it because it's also loaded in nutrients, so muck that is going to cause an overgrowth of algae. And so what I did was I sieved a lot of the water. And what that does is it takes the larger creatures like the tiny snails and the tadpoles out of that water so I could save them. And then I dumped that water on my garden beds. And then I used what was left, put it in the pond. I also reintroduced the frogs. They were happy as can be to be reintroduced into the pond. And then I put all the plants back. So I have oxygenating plants. There's hornwort in there. There's Canadian pondweed. There's also a new marsh marigold that I bought. It has white flowers, and so that should look very pretty. And then I left the pond for a full day. And during that time, I also had a couple of buckets sitting at the side of the pond that I filled from the tap. So I left them there for that time so that the chlorine could evaporate off the water, so it would be safe to add to the pond. I imagine that you're watching this right now and already thinking, gosh, that's so much work. And it really is. If you are going to be redoing a wildlife pond, think very hard about that decision, because to do it right, you do need to take that time and effort to try to save as much of the animals that are living in your pond as possible. It's not as easy as creating a brand new wildlife pond. So once I had the pond filled with the old pond water, filled with some fresh water, it was time also to start decorating. And by that point, I'd already started adding some new pink gravel to the pond. It's beautiful, and it also complements the white quartz stones that I have around the edge. And I've been very careful that the quartz stones are not on the liner where it is submerged under the water. As I was adding the stones and the decoration around the sides, I was also tucking the underlay underneath. I was trimming it a bit, leaving enough so that if I need to work with it later on, I can just unfold it. And I also started putting in some plants as well. So there's already some plants established here. I have an ice plant over here, lady's mantle, which gives good cover to frogs and other animals. There's an astrantia over there. I put an aqualegia over here on this area. These are all geums, and I've even got a couple of aquatic geums down here as well. So they like more boggy conditions. And with this area right here being kind of the overflow area, I'm hoping that this soil here is a little bit moister. And then I've also mulched this area, re-edged the beds, and I've sown a wildflower seed mix that's good for wildlife. To finish up this project, I put a brand new barley straw pack in the water. It has added lavender as well. And that will help to keep green, murky water down, algae growth over the summer. And I'll have to replace it again in a few months' time, but it's well worth it, completely natural, and helps to keep your pond clean. And if you would like to find one, I'll leave a link down in the video text description to where you can go and get one for your pond. And then I've also added some more wood chip around here as well, making it cozy and lovely, a nice place to hang out. And it's pretty much done. And although I was really reluctant to do this project because it is a big job, it really has been well worth it for the longevity of the pond, but also to make improvements to the design. I took plants out that were not ideal. And of course, I've made the pond better for wildlife. It's wider, it's got more shallow areas and shelves, and it just looks so much nicer. I'm so pleased with the end results. I'll be giving regular updates on the pond's progress in my monthly gardening videos, and the next one will be out in a couple of weeks' time. And so that way, over the summer, you'll see all of the plants starting to grow and bloom. You'll see if there's any new animals that decided to join the pool party, and we'll just see the entire progress of the pond together. And I hope also that this video will be able to help you if you are thinking about redoing your wildlife pond. And if you are thinking about creating one from scratch, there's also the original pond build video that you should have a watch of too. And I'll put a link to that up here on the screen. That shows how we dug this out and got it all started. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. And until then, bye for now.